Ooh, much better. Good morning, Olivia.
Good morning.
How was your day? How you been?
It's good. How was your day?
Girl, I just woke up. Hi, Kimberly. Good morning.
Hey, how are y'all?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Oh, all for Tippin' Boy. We're just waiting for Professor Peters. He'll be in shortly. I did get a notification that several people were going to be doing the watch party tonight instead of being here. So if it's a little thin, that's why. No worries. Oops.
Awesome.
Hmm. This is recorded, by the way, just so you know. You ready for finals?
Yep.
I have projects, so yeah, I guess.
Ooh, what you doing?
I have a project for my practicum that I have to just give like a summary of um my internship and stuff and what I thought about it, and then I have another project for another class about the class itself and what I learned.
How
Ooh.
how are you liking practicum? I still need to
I
take it.
think it's amazing. I learned a lot from it. I think it's like very short. However, it's like only 8 weeks, so it's very limited on what you learn or what you can learn. So, but me and Wendy have been talking about doing a separate internship with just her company and myself. So we're
Hey,
looking at that.
hey,
That's
congratulations! That's super big.
Yeah, I'm excited.
that's awesome.
Wendy sounds like a really cool lady.
She does.
Wendy
Hmm.
is very amazing. I love her.
I got some projects for my classes too. We gotta do a whole pitch deck, business plan, and like the whole 9 yards for my
Mm.
business management. I can't believe that the semesters are already almost over.
I know. I think actually that's what it was. What class are you taking?
Business, business operations, business management, principles of business, or business principles, and then principles of marketing.
Yeah, I think I took some of those during the summer, and I think I have one of those this semester with my practicum that I'm finishing off as well.
There, you're pretty close to graduating, aren't you, Kimberly?
I am next semester, hopefully, if everything goes good.
Hey,
Yay.
you and
Yeah.
Olivia, absolutely.
You know, I'll walk in May.
Me too, hopefully.
Fingers crossed for us both.
Yes.
I just heard from Professor Peters. He's going to be hopping on in just a few moments.
Okay, great.
Did y'all do anything for Thanksgiving? Friendsgiving?
I ate.
Whoa. Just family stuff.
Girl, your mama make some tamales?
No, that's Christmas.
Ooh. I'm telling you, girl, we need to figure out how we can get in contact. So I can get
I
some
did.
tamales.
I did take a look and see about the tamale thing. By the way, I need to double check um the legal stuff, but I think if we if we have to have like a special kitchen or stuff, I was going to ask and see if we could do it at the culinary center. But as far as I found out, we should be able to we can be able to sell tamales based on our conversation the last time we talked.
Mm.
Uh,
That's interesting. I don't know how people do it because, like, I mean, when I used to work at a dental clinic, but like based in Garland, there was like people going around selling tamales, and I don't know how they would do it. Like to keep them warm, I think they would keep them in like the little what's it called? the little pans or whatever, but I don't know how they would keep it like warm. So we have to look into that.
Mm-hmm.
You can. I've seen people put them in coolers, like those big coolers.
Yeah, but how would you keep them hot? Like a crock pot type thing?
Good point.
Nobody want no cold tamales.
I'm sure coolers also keep them hot, right? I mean, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe keeping them like in a pan or something.
Mm. Did y'all see the message about the Christmas movie stuff?
Mm,
I have not.
I have not either.
We
Where'd you see that?
we had talked a little bit last time about hosting a Christmas watch party, like a movie party.
Mm-hmm.
We we got a couple of recommendations. I'll talk about it a little bit later in the meeting. Um, whoops. But what was I gonna say? We did get the clear to go and do it at Student Life if we need to.
Of which campus?
Off of North Lake for sure.
Mm. Mm.
We are also able to bring family as well. It can be a family function. It's been a really busy semester, and I don't know about y'all, but I haven't been able to see my family very much. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, having a little family thing might be very nice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? What do you mean? Hold on a second. I gotta troubleshoot with Professor Peters. How do I? Mm, mm, mm. Where is this man? 1, 2, 3. Important form. Um, Copy link. Oh, Hi, Professor Peters.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you
Good
hear me?
morning, good evening, I guess now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I've been battling with nasal drainage, so I got this dry cough going on that's driving me crazy.
Yeah, something's going around. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I knew one of my students had come to class. I said, "Oh, you could have just called me because you're gonna get us all sick."
Well, so we're gonna go ahead and start. I do know that we have a couple of people who will be joining a little bit later, and then we have a few other members who said that they'll be going to the watch party tonight.
Okay.
So this presentation will be recorded and we'll put it up on our YouTube a little bit later. But with that being said, let's get started. Yay!
Yay!
Welcome to How to Start Your Business Legally, presented by the amazing and talented Professor Leslie Peters. We've got a couple of different things on our agenda right now. We're going to be letting Mr. Peters present first, so that he has plenty of time. Please make sure to ask questions, because we won't be able to like, well, I'm sure that there'll be lots of people with the same kinds of questions, for later.
Right.
A couple of different business news that we'll get to as well. Club news, our logo, potentially a Christmas movie night, the Tech Hub, and the Gala. So that being said, Mr. Leslie Peters.
Awesome,
Yay.
awesome. Let me see if I can get this PowerPoint to show right here. Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome. As I am working on bringing the screen up so you can see, I do want to just start and let you know this is going to be informative, but also keeping it simple so it's easy to digest and easy for you to take advantage of and move forward. But I do want to spend some time breaking down the differences and particularly the pros and cons of each different organizational structure type. And you will learn very quickly what is not my favorite and why it's not my favorite. But and why it shouldn't be you guys' favorite either. It's a great way to start, but you shouldn't stay there, and I'll go over why. With that being said, let me see if I can, you guys tell me what comes up on the screen when I share this. Let's try to get to this particular window here. I have to do it like this. Give me a second. There we go. All right, I'm gonna do it like this so you guys can see it because I can't put it in full mode, but this will work. All right, are you guys able to see that?
Perfect. I see
Yes,
it.
yes.
Understand business structures.
All right, good.
Yes.
All right, good.
Yes.
So let's dive right into it. So I am the guy with the girl's name. That's my story. I am sticking to it. And so as we look at understanding business structures, particularly, and it's not, even though I'm talking about Texas, that's going to be related to some of the particular fees, but this structure type applies to anywhere you go. These structure types will always be the same. So let's just dive into them. And I'll take a look in the agenda I'll walk you through. So we're going to first look at the different types of business structures, pros and cons, and then we're going to knock them out and go through them. So we're talking about sole proprietorship is the first one, partnership, the next one, limited liability company, the next one, corporation, and then a cooperative. And then we'll run through steps to start a business in Texas, and then a QA session at the end for any questions you have. So jumping right into this, when we look at sole proprietorship, most of the business, if I take the whole number of businesses that registered with the SBA and the government, over 90% of those businesses are this type. They're sole proprietorships. And you may want to say why. But when we say why, we'll look at the pros and it'll tell us why. Number one, they are very simple and inexpensive to establish. I like to take out the fancy inexpensive word and just call it what it is. They are cheap to do. All right. So they're simple and they're cheap to do, and that's why most people do them. You can be up and running in a day if you're doing a sole proprietorship. It's complete control by the business owner. There's nothing you have to share with anybody. You are the conqueror of your own world, so to speak. It's an easy tax filing because it's filed in conjunction with your individual taxes. Whether you're doing it, you just treat it as your personal income. That's how it's done as tax. So it's easy tax filing, doesn't require anything new on your part from a tax filing perspective because it's filed with your personal tax return. Now, the cons. The biggest one, if you can't remember but one con, this is the one you need to always remember. It's unlimited personal liability. So the way I basically describe this to people is that if you're a sole proprietorship, all right, and you make a mistake, and let's say you have a restaurant, you make a mistake, it causes me food poisoning, or it causes me severe harm for something that one of your employees or you did wrong. Not only am I able to sue you and come after your business assets, but I'm coming after your personal assets as well. So the way I like to put it to people, not only will I take your business, I'm gonna take your house and your car, and I might take your kids. It's just that serious, right? And
My
so
goodness.
and so when I say kids, I'm being facetious, but the house and car are real. So that's personal assets you have that you have to liquidate or that I can take control over because sole proprietorship doesn't have any barriers of protection for you. That's why it's easiest to start, but it's also dangerous to stay there. All right. So as you start making money and revenue, you want to change this status as quickly as possible. Other cons is difficulty in raising capital, and it's a limited lifespan because usually, if you're a sole proprietorship, you say stay a sole proprietorship. Typically, your revenues are tied to the owner, so the revenues goes as the owner goes. So you won't ever be able to take a vacation. It won't seem like because you're always tied to your work. And then when you start scaling it, you're gonna find you need to get out of that business structure for all kinds of reasons. All right. But most people that never scale, and like you'll see consultants do this a lot, they'll stay in this. Not a good idea because they're essentially trading time for dollars. And what I want you guys to be able to do is build a business that scales, that allows you to be able to employ. So the structure of what you're thinking, they start with the end in mind. You don't want to be the only person that knows how to do it. You got to cross train, you got to scale. You want to be able to build a machine that moves whether you're there or not, and that you simply are overseeing it as it grows to make sure it's moving correctly. But you want to make sure that you're building a system that scales. All right. And so typically with a sole proprietorship, once the owner dies or retires, that business has ceased to exist. So it has a limited lifespan, usually tied to the owner of the business. Now, as we look at partnerships, a little bit different here. So the pros are it's different, but it's very similar to a sole proprietorship in some aspects. The pros are because you have partners, you now have shared responsibilities and resources. So it's not just you doing all the work. It's still simple, pretty inexpensive to form because now you're sharing that cost of starting and formation with all of your business partners, not just you. Taxation is simple. It's pass-through taxation, so you're still filing it on your personal income tax report. The cons, though, is joint liability now. So not only do you have liabilities, but all your partners have liability, right? To the extent at which they made an investment. If they are active in the business, which means they're not silent partners, then they have unlimited liability in the business as well. So that means they don't have any restrictions, so people can come after them totally as well. The biggest one I want you to circle, and I know we're not in the month of February yet, and it's not Lover's Lane and Valentine's month, so I can say this confidently because We are in what's affectionately known, according to my daughter, my teenager, what she told me is breakup season. I have no idea. This is just what I'm hearing from the mouth of a teenager. That the biggest challenge with partnerships is the potential for conflict. When you have people and when you have multiple people and then you have money involved, you tend to have conflict, drama, problems, misunderstandings. And so what I tell people, I've had customers come in, I'm setting up their organizations for them and say, no, we don't have to do LLC. We've been doing this for years. We never had a problem. We don't even argue. I can't tell you how many times. I think the ratio right now is about 82% of those people that tell me that are back in my office and I'm having to try to settle a dispute or dissolve the partnership because they no longer talk to each other. So I say that to say this: when you are in the honeymoon phase, everything works. There's no problems. Everybody's perfect, but the honeymoon phase does not last very long. So there's going to be conflict. So you want to have, if you're going to do a partnership, you want to make sure you have a very detailed operational agreement to break down how you guys handle conflict as partner and what needs to happen. If it's a money issue, what needs to happen. You solve all those things on the front end, so you're not having to try to figure it out later, because now you don't have anything in writing and it's just a big argument. Right? If you got an operating agreement, even if you got to take it to the corporate court of law, it's gonna take it back to the operating agreement. This is what you signed, this is what you agreed, this is how you would solve your disputes, this is how it must be done. Then shared profits. So the biggest reason why a lot of people don't like partnerships, because I gotta share my revenue with somebody because I have a partner. Well, yes, you have a partner, but they're not doing anything. But you brought them in as a partner. They're your partner. You still gotta share those revenues, and those profits are not just yours. They're into the profits are to the entire partnership. All right. Now, if you haven't figured out by now, my least favorite is sole proprietorship. Because it's very risky. It's very risky, right? It's good to start there, but as soon as you start making money and you get your first customer, the first thing you should do is convert. Okay. Limited liability company, one of my favorites. And whether it's a limited liability partnership, limited liability company, a PLLC, which is just a professional limited liability company, they're all the same structure. The pros are you have limited personal liability. So now this protects you from people because they can come after your business, they can't come after you personally. You have flexible management structure and your tax structure is still pass through. So you can actually elect the option, I think it's 2380 with the IRS, that you can file even if you have an LLC, you can elect to file it a little bit differently. If you have a S corporation, you can certainly affect the file a little differently, but you can actually opt to file your limited liability company's tax filing as its own entity and not with your personal. But that's an option. But you can also file it with your personal income as a Schedule C and itemize your deductions and all of those things. Cons, a little bit higher startup costs. So for example, if you create an LLC in Texas, just to file it with the Secretary of State, I think that's a little over $300, 300 and some change. But then you're gonna have to have what is it, 300 and
I paid $308 for mine.
yeah, like I said, 300 and some change. I knew it wasn't much over that. Yeah. But you're gonna need some other things other than filing. So when you file an LLC, you're gonna need an articles of incorporation. Very simple. I can show you some templates of what those look like. You're gonna need an operating agreement. Now, if you're just a sole entity and you're the only owner, you don't necessarily need the operating agreement. But if you have other partners or other people that you're gonna ever bring into your LLC, you must create an operational agreement that spells out literally how profits are distributed, how you raise capital, how that's done, how assessments are done. All of that needs to be spelled out in the operational agreement. So whenever you have an issue, you just go to the operational agreement, and that's what everybody signed and everybody agreed upon. it's a lot more compliance when you have LLCs because you now you're so think of it this way, you're now not paying self-employment tax because you're treating it as a personal company, but now you've got to file your revenues, deduct your expenses, your itemized deductions, you're going to get taxed on your net profit. That's what you get taxed on as a business owner. As an individual, you it's very different. You make your money, it gets taxed first, and you get what's left. So that's why any most successful people want to have it as a LLC so you can deduct those things. All those expenses you have that affect your business, you want to be able to deduct those and itemize those so you don't pay taxes on those. All right. Now, self-employment taxes, depending on the state, may still apply. In Texas, they still gonna hit you with it, but it's less substantial than it would be if you just a sole proprietorship. Moving along, and Deanna, if there's any questions coming up while I'm doing this, surely you can just stop me and let me know. But I will have a QA at the end. And then when we look at a corporation, which is next, this is a little bit different. This is much more expensive because now you're dealing with stock. Whether you got to decide whether you're going to be an S corp or C corp. There's different limitation. If you're S corp, you're limited to only 100 share owners. You can't have more. So when you look at raising capital, you have ability to raise capital, but you're limited because you can only sell 100 shares of stock. Whereas a C corporation, that you don't have that restriction. So with both S and C, you have the ability to raise capital through the sale of stocks. It has a perpetual existence, which means it goes beyond the owner's lifespan. Because as a corporation, it's an entity of its own. So when you think about a corporation, think of it as a person itself. It's its own entity. It builds its own credit profile. It literally is a person in the eyes of the law, the corporation itself. And then you have limited liability for shareholders. Some of the cons is complexity. And I don't say this to get people scared. It's not that complex, guys. It's really not. But it's a lot more complex than a sole proprietorship. It is pretty hefty to establish if you do it the correct way. But it's not. You don't have to be rich to start a corporation. It's not that limiting. So I tell most people that come to me and think they can't, can actually easily afford to start a corporation and do it that way. But you have to have things in place. So if you're going to have a corporation, you absolutely better have a CPA that you outsource that handles your compliance issues. You're going to have to report not only to the IRS, but to the Secretary of State and also to the tax commission, right? Sales tax, all that stuff. And then you have double taxation. So when you have a corporation, the corporation is taxed, and then you as an individual is taxed on the money you receive from the corporation. So that's why it's called double taxation. That's not always a bad thing. Yes, Deanna?
Why do they double tax it
Good question.
versus the other ones?
So the reason why they double tax it is because as a corporation, taxes must be, because it's its own person, it has to be filed taxes as a corporation. You cannot file it on your personal income tax. With all of the other types, you're filing them on your personal income tax return. So therefore, there's only one taxable entity, which is you, the person. So the corporation, for example, now there's some benefits to this. So as a corporation, the corporation can make, let's say the corporation makes $5 million in the year 2025. Once I take off my expenses, see, because I can control what I pay myself. So once I take off my expenses to lower my tax liability, let's say my salary is $350,000 that I would normally take. Well, if I take that $350,000 and pay myself $350,000, then on the personal side of my personal taxes, guess what I'm going to pay taxes on? That $350,000. However, if I leave it in the corporation and the corporation pays its taxes, but the corporation is essentially, I have perks as an employee of the corporation. So I take a lesser salary. So maybe my salary is on 100,000, but the corporation pays for my car because now the corporation owns the car, or it pays for my gas, it pays for my maintenance, it pays for my parking, it pays for my insurance, it pays. So now those are expenses that I don't have to come out of personally, that the company is paying for, that they're paying taxes on. So you're able to have much more flexibility. So yes, on paper, I only make $100,000, but is that really true? It is. It's technically true, but that doesn't mean that my cash leverage impact is it, because I'm not having to spend that $100,000 like I would have to spend that 350. Because if I take the 350, then I'm paying for all those things. And I'm paying taxes on the 350. So I'm gonna get taxed on the 350 and I'm gonna have to pay for all those things. Whereas on a corporation, if the corporation pays for those expenses, it doesn't pay taxes on those expenses. The corporation pays taxes on net profits. So remember, it deducts expenses first, it pays taxes on what's left. So if I do it that way, then I'm not paying taxes on stuff that are stuff I have to use every day in my work life. So that's why you'll see that. You'll see um, sometimes successful people will take less, or they will take part of their salary in stock or stock options, as opposed to taking the cash. Why? Because they don't have to pay. It's stock, it's paper. So until they cash that stock out, they don't have to pay taxes on it. It's called a capital gains tax. So they don't have to pay taxes on it because there's been no capital gain. So that's kind of how that works in terms of corporations. Last we have a cooperative, which is a little bit different. These are kind of created. You see it a lot in rural communities or in community organizations, and this is when you have a group of people that are coming together to do some common good. Usually, that forms a cooperative. It has a mission, a specific mission. You see some nonprofits that are cooperatives, but it's democratic decision making. Some of the pros, benefits shared among members. So, like, if you ever looked at a co-op, like they have these in New York a lot with housing co-ops, those are cooperative. Well, every tenant that has a residence in that cooperative is a member of that co-op. So they literally go to monthly meeting, they vote on stuff, very similar to kind of like our club. But that's how they operate and work. And there's limited liability there. The cons are the funding options are limited because usually the way a co-op raises money is through its membership, through dues and assessments and that type of thing. It's a slower decision-making process because one person can't make a decision. It has to go before the body. So there has to be a meeting, there has to be a vote, there has to be discussion. So it takes longer. So the process is slower. And then it's a little more difficult to set up because now there's a lot of questions you have to answer in a cooperative because you can only work in the guidelines that you approve when you set up your cooperative. So if you set up cooperative and your cooperative is to provide technology at no cost to rural communities with limited access, then you can't all of a sudden be cutting grass tomorrow and say I'm doing that on the cooperative in these same rural communities because they don't have access to lawn care. That's not in compliance with how you set it up. So you have to operate, it's very strictly operated within the areas that you were approved to be set up in. So you can't go outside of that. So that's what a cooperative is. And then we're almost done here. How to start a business in Texas, just the steps. You want to choose a business structure. The number 2 step, you want to register your name with the Secretary of State. And they have a search tool on their site because you got to search to see if your name is available. And it'll tell you. So that's the first thing. Then once you find out your name is available and you lock that in with the Secretary of State, then you want to go to the IRS website or the Fed website and you want to obtain a EIN, which is an employee identification number, which for your business, it's like the social security number of your business, is what it is. Then you want to file the necessary documents and permits with the Secretary of State if needed. You want to open a business bank account. I can't stress this enough. Do not commingle your funds. You want to open a business bank account. And then number 6, you want to comply with all ongoing state and federal regulations. That's the steps. All right. In conclusion, other things I want to remind you of. You want to choose the right business structure. It's essential for your success. you want to consider all legal, financial, and operational factors, right? I always advise my clients and people I consult with, when you create your company, I want you to think about right on the front end, and I tell you to put some money aside, set up money aside for trademark. You want to trademark your name. You want to trademark your slogans if you have one. That can get pricey because your trademark is per instance. So, for example, if you have a name, a logo, and a slogan, that's let me tell you how many trademarks it. The name is a trademark application. The slogan is a trademark application. The logo is a trademark application. Then the name and logo together is a trademark application. Then the name, logo, and slogan together is a trademark application. And then the color, a certain color scheme with the name is a trademark application. A certain color scheme with the name, logo, and slogan is another trademark application. So what I tell, because let's get the main ones out the way at first. And every year you should be adding more trademarks to cover yourself in every way possible. Okay. So that's how it gets pricey, because I know what I typically, if I'm doing a trademark for somebody, it's a minimum it's gonna cost $3,500, because the follow up with the IRS, and I mean the US Patents Office, and all that has to go through in that process is not for the faint of heart. So I gotta charge you for it because it's time, it takes a lot of time. All right. Well, that concludes that. So now that is my presentation. And now I will turn it back over to Deanna for any questions that we may have.
Thank you. Lovely. We did actually have a couple of different questions.
Okay.
I know you had just said that you had just talked about how the trademarks were like, you said $1,300, or was that $3,500?
No. I said that's why if you're paying somebody to do them, I said I personally, when I trademark, my minimum start cost for preparing somebody's trademark is $3,500, because and that doesn't even count the trademark application fees. That's just my cost for doing it, because the time that it requires you to spend, it's a lot. And so you're really charging for your time, because you got to file it, you got to follow it, you got to respond to every request that the patents office has. Then it's back and forth. So it takes a lot of time. And that's why most people don't want to do it, because they get overwhelmed by that. But it's not that hard, but you have to charge for that time. If you pay somebody to do it, just know it's going to cost. It's not going to be cheap. So if somebody tells you, hey, I'll do your trademarks for $200, you might want to run. But
yeah,
you can. I mean, I have a course I used to sell. I have to put it back up website that teaches you how to do it, and you could do it. But there's so many things you have to consider. Most people, before to even see if you're what you're trademarking is actually eligible to be trademarked. Right. So there's a lot of pre-checking that has to go on, because once you file that fee, it's non-refundable from the patents office. So if you make a mistake in filing and you didn't clear it before, you don't get the money back.
Oof. Yeah, and they take quite a bit of money.
Yep, they do.
How much should we expect to pay for these business structures? I know I paid about $300 for the LLC filing for Texas, and that didn't include having someone do it for me because I went through Taylor Brands. But how much should we expect to pay for this?
For what
like
exactly?
a corporation or a sole proprietorship, or well, we just talked about the LLC, but like,
Yeah, well, so for a sole proprietorship, I wouldn't. You don't pay anybody. You can do that yourself. That's why it's the cheapest one to start. So please don't pay anybody to do your sole proprietorship. Nothing to it. There's nothing to it. It's an easy thing to do. But to do your LLC, typically, some people would charge. So, like for me, my standard marker on it, if it's the fee is 300, my hours and time, I charge about $500 to do a LLC filing. because I go through the whole process and explain it to you. So LLCs are not necessarily expensive to file. You can find people that'll help you that'll do it for you for as low as $300, right? Um, they're not expensive. So even partnerships, again, LLCs and partnerships are not incredibly expensive at all to pay for somebody to do it for you. Trademarks are, and corporations are, because corporations require a lot more.
Yeah, they're the ones that are pulling a lot of money though. Would it be
Yes,
more responsible to start as an LLC and then go into a corporation later?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And what you'll find, it's not, people have to understand the first thing I ask people, why would you want a corporation? Because I need to make sure you understand that your reasoning for wanting a corporation is actually something that a corporation benefits you for. Because there's so many times I get people say, hey, they're making money. Like I had this customer that it got to the point where they were making over $80,000 in revenue a month, and their expenses were only like 12,000. So they were making money, right?
Making bank.
And they wanted to go to a corporation. I said, well, why? Well, I just felt like I need to. You don't. Are you looking to expand? No. Are you changing your model? Are you going to a franchise model? No. Um, then why do you tell me why you think you need a corporation? I don't know. I just thought I did. The main benefit for you wanting to go to a corporation if you're going to be issuing stock and selling stock to raise capital, or if you're going to be needing to liquidate or be able to sell certain aspects of the biggest reason most people create a corporation is for that entity. They want to raise capital. It's easy to raise capital through a corporation because you can issue shares of stock. But that only means then my next question is, are you going public or are you trying to stay private? If you're trying to stay private, do you have a list of people and a pool of people that are interested in buying your stock? Because now you're selling stock on the private market. It's not public. It's not like you're going on stock exchange. You're not buying off Robinhood app. So there's a lot of questions I go through to make it sure. And so most times people are like, oh yeah, I don't need all that. And there's some cases where people do. So it just depends. I say you would need an S corp, not a C corp, because S corp will allow you to sell 100 shares of stock. Most people that are starting small are not selling any more of that. But once you go to an S, is it you can't convert from so that's why I always tell people you got to watch it though, because people say, well, can I convert from an S to this, or can I convert from this to this? And that's not always the case.
Um, we had another question from Kimberly. You said you can file an LLC by yourself, right?
Yeah, you can.
Is there anything that we would need to know, like pitfalls or common pitfalls?
Yeah, so the biggest pitfalls that I see is that people, so let me say this. It depends. If you're trying to convert to a multi-member LLC or a single member LLC is a critical question that I have to know the answer to. If it's a single member LLC, easy peasy, nothing to it, because it's just you. If you're going to have multiple people in your LLC, so multiple partners, then it's much more complicated because now we got to have an operation agreement. That operation agreement has to be very detailed because now it's got to cover all those things that could go wrong. How do you solve conflict? Are you going through arbitration? Is it going through the court system? Is there max cap to it? What's the process for taking money out the corporation? Does everybody have to sign on? Does it have to be voted on? What's the waiting time? All that has to be in the operation agreement. Can your spouse or can a partner spouse also work in the corporation or work in the LLC? That's got to be spelled out. So it's so many things. What are the perks, right? So what's the profit distribution? Because well, is it equal to the investment distribution? Because when you have multi-member LLCs, everybody didn't invest the same to get into it. So what's the profit distribution? So like for example, there's one company I'm involved in with my friends where the profit distribution is the two principals that created it are equal profit distribution at 38%. And then the third partner is more of a silent partner and their distribution is at 22%. So see the difference? So
Okay.
those are the things you have to think about. And if you don't know those things, it pays to sit down with somebody that knows that, that's going to ask you all these questions and make you go through and fill this out and think this out. Because again, the honeymoon does not last, right? So you've got to have detailed processes and procedures by how to handle conflict, because conflict is gonna come. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
when, not if. It's coming.
Now, do you I had I had recently seen that companies now have to put in BOI reports, but then I saw that there was a new thing that they had might have stricken it down. Could you talk a little bit about that?
All right. You kind of cut out on me. Can you say that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. So so recently there as I was setting up my business, I had seen that we were required to put in a BOI report now.
Oh, yeah.
But I also saw an article saying that that was struck down. Do you know anything about that? What is that?
All right. So the BOI report is the beneficial ownership information report. And it's not all companies, but most are required to report this about the individuals who actually own or control the corporations. So that's where you're seeing it from. It has not been ruled down yet. I did see some things where some people are challenging it, but that's a long process. It would have to go through. As of right now, if you're required to do it, you're required to do it. But of course, anytime we have something new like that, people are going to challenge it. Some people are not going to be aboard, and it's going to be a long legal battle, and eventually it'll sort itself out. But as of right now, it stands. And what that's saying is, for public entity, we have to be able to track down who actually owns this corporation. And the reason why that whole BOI even came on the scene is because with people hiding stuff through shell corps and all kind of things and things they were doing to move and launder money and stuff like that, in a different sense, this is one of the things that was created out of that to kind of try to mitigate some of that. So it's almost like Sarbanes-Oxley that came about after Enron fiasco and Arthur Anderson, which caused Arthur Anderson, which was one of the big five accounting firms, to go out of business. And they created the Sarbanes-Oxley rule, which changed the whole ways nonprofits are governed now. In a way, so typically when you see something like this, something has happened, and this is a result of how to fix what had happened. So you'll
Ooh.
always have these things pop up from time to time. But in a nutshell, all it is who owns the corporate. You have to self-report who owns the entity, and if there are multiple owners. And you'll also see this if you apply for any government funding, any startup funding. There's going to be a question that's going to require you to disclose this, and even to disclose it at what percentage does the other owners own it. And if they own a certain percentage of it, then they have to be on the application with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions that we haven't put in the chat yet? Go ahead and put them in now or unmute yourself and ask.
I see a couple of questions here. Is there a way to be, Yana, you had a good question. Is there a way to avoid being pigeonholed into one thing as a co-op or cooperative? No, because that's the whole point of a cooperative is for you to streamline and say, this is my mission. This is this thing I'm going to do. If you decide to change that at one point, then you would either need to create a new cooperative or you would have to go through the process of filing to amend your cooperative, which you can do that, but it's going to take some time. But now here's the problem. You can't just file to go amend your cooperative because before you can even do that, now you have to educate. It has to go to a formal vote of all the members. Then you got to go to your bylaws of the cooperatives and say, what is the percentage of members that's required to make a change to the mission? Is it simply majority, or is it 2/3, or is it majority and a third? Like all those things have to be sorted out. And then once you got it through your membership and you voted on it as approved, then you got to go through the process of changing the filing, amending filing with the IRS and see if they will approve it.
Wait a minute. I thought co-ops were able to be filed under different kinds of structures like LLCs or corps, kind of like how REI is an incorporated.
Yeah,
Is it a separate structure?
it is, but still, the cooperative is different within that structure, right? So the cooperative is an entity in itself.
Gotcha.
So it's so what I always tell people, that's why I say depending on what you want to do, because there's some perks to cooperative depending on what you're doing. Cooperatives are very, very, very good in certain instances, like in housing with the condos and things in New York that you see. Very, very, very critical, and they work phenomenally. Cooperatives are very good in, I see it in like Head Start programs, like community organizations. They work very well in that. In business, you don't see many of them. Not like in a traditional consumer business to business, corp to corp business. You won't see a cooperative many times. You most of the time your cooperatives are to because it's restricted to membership. They can
Right.
only deal with its members, so they're not as far as any changes. And then the mission of who they help can be anybody. But as far as the administration of the cooperative is controlled by its membership.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just like a nonprofit similar to it. You have to set up all those guidelines with a nonprofit in the beginning because who know like I cringe when I hear people say, "Oh yeah, I own my nonprofit." That's not possible. You can't own your nonprofit. It's not legally possible. You founded your nonprofit. You founded it, yes. You can't own it because you have to have a board of directors if it's a public nonprofit. Even if it's a private nonprofit, you still have to have a board. Legally, the nonprofit is owned by the board of directors. And usually, Texas is one of those states, most states, I think there's only a few states that haven't. Most states will require you to change your board of directors every so many years or to have staggered terms at least.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions, ladies?
I have a question. It's mostly for like people that like own company, like their LLCs or like their corporate companies. Like I know you were saying something about corporate, and do you know anything about tax write-offs or what you can like if an LLC can do like tax write-offs or anything like that? Because I know you said something about corporate being able to, I think.
No,
I missed that
absolutely.
part.
The LLCs can too. All business structures can have tax write-offs. So that's LLCs can do it just the same. The biggest difference between the LLC and Corp, LLC's taxes are affected by what they call pass-through taxation. So you file your LLC's taxes on your personal tax report. Now you can still file it as a Schedule C and itemize deductions and all of that, but it's filed with your personal tax report, whereas a corporation is filed on its own as its own separate entity. The actual corporation files taxes. It's not in conjunction with your personal tax report. So
I
you'll
see.
notice there's two filing deadlines. Every year there's the personal filing deadline and there's a corporate tax filing deadline. They're different dates.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm. So if you're a single member, um, I'll be honest with you, unless you're selling stock and you're raising capital with that, I don't know why I don't really see no advantage for you being a corp. Because if you just want to be taxed individually, you can select an option and fill out this form. I think it's the 2308 or 2380 with the IRS, and you can literally file your LLC as a separate entity if you chose to. But you have to get approved to do that from the IRS, but it is possible. Um, if you just wanted to have that concept like a corporation does, but really no benefit to it. I mean, the benefit of a corporation is the ability to raise capital, and you do that by selling stock. And if you're not doing that, then I just don't know why you would pay the extra expense to have a corporation. Because now, once you go into corporate, now you got to have an annual audit if if your revenue is over a certain amount. You got to have a definitely an independent CPA outside of your organization. So it's a lot more expensive to maintain. So you got to make sure the reasons for you having a corporation are necessary as opposed to LLC or PLLC or one of the other structures.
Whew, quite a lot to think about yet. Thank you.
It
Thank you so much,
is.
Professor.
But I love it. I love it. I absolutely love this stuff. I probably set up about between 5 and 8 new companies a month. Except for December, it tends to get real slow around the holidays because people Christmas shop.
Yep.
But but I will say for all of you, if you're thinking about starting a business, I just listen. It doesn't cost much to start out as an LLC. I would just start there. I really would, because you can immediately, and then what you would do on your taxes, and then find you a really good. If you're not good with books and find you a really really good bookkeeper.
Amen.
Yes, if you're not, listen, when I tell people this, don't be a hero. If accounting or financials are not your thing, outsource that and get somebody that's very good with doing that. It keeps you out of trouble. And you do that in all aspects of your business. You do the part that makes you money that you do the best. And you try, and as you move up and make revenues, you outsource. Don't be cheap and say, I need to keep this money myself. No, reinvest it in your business, outsource it to people that can do the thing that you don't like to do. You may be able to do it. So I give you a great example. I can do social media. I don't necessarily like to do social media. So for me to do something on social media, it may take me 2 hours. For somebody that loves it and does it, it took them 10 minutes. Who's most efficient? So it's more effective for me to pay somebody that can do it in 10 minutes and do it better than me than it took me 2 hours to do it. How could that other hour and 50 minutes of my time be more valuable to me as a company? How it can be more valuable by doing something that was revenue generating? So that's the kind of things I want you guys to think from that mindset. Always think from an entrepreneur mindset. You're thinking from 100,000 feet, right? What's coming? How can I leverage? Because that means you're building it to scale. And if you get used to and trusting other people to do things, you won't hold on to the reins so tight, and that's going to allow you to grow and scale. Your focus as a business should be going out and getting client. You should be very active in lead and client acquisition and customer acquisition. That's where the bulk of your time should be spent. That, and then the other part is in quality assurance, making sure your product or your service is as absolute best it can be.
Whew. Professor Peter has
I
given
do
us
have a
hard-
question.
Okay.
I know we're talking about opening an LLC. How about closing an LLC? Like, have you had to close it, or is it like a certain way that you're supposed to close it, or you just let it go, or how does that happen?
No. Don't let it go. Don't do that.
Like, yeah.
Take that out your mind. No, there's a formal process you go through with the Secretary of State to actually close your corporate, your LLC. And it's not hard. It's just some paperwork you have to file, and then you would send your final closeout report. But yeah, it's not painful to close it. So, but you definitely want to close it out because then it changes on um, the state's website as not no longer an active corporation or so LLC that's been closed. So now when people go to look for you, they realize that that entity no longer exists. If you leave it as active and keep it open, then you're still susceptible because you hadn't closed it. So lawsuits or anything, particularly for people that's disgruntled or mad after you close it, you want to make sure you take care of that. The other thing is depending on the state. Now in Texas, you don't have to pay this every year. But I know, like for example, in Mississippi, You got to do an annual report for your LLC every single year. And if you don't, they will fine you, and then they will uh, deactivate your license. And so, but it's not hard to do. It's just a couple forms to fill out to close it. So if you're done and you're effectively closing the business, please go to the Secretary of State's website and click on the just say form, how do I close my LLC? And it'll take you to that page, and then just follow those steps.
This
Got
is
it.
also
And you said, I'm sorry, and you said that there's no annual thing here in Texas for an LLC?
No, not like you don't have to file an annual report. But some state in Texas you don't. But in some states you do.
I see. Thank you.
Mhm. And let me double check, because sometimes states will add stuff, and I hadn't done one in a minute. So let me just double check, fact check myself to make sure they hadn't created, because you have to watch it, because as the legislatures change every 2 years, the laws change, so stuff change. So you have to stay updated on it. Let me just check it.
Texas is pretty pro business though. I'd be surprised if they changed it.
Yeah, I would be too. Yeah.
While he's double checking, do we have any more questions? Anything that's popped up, ladies?
Nope, Texas has not changed it. Texas still does not require you to do that. So that's the great thing about Texas in that sense. Texas doesn't, Delaware doesn't. There's a couple states like Deanna said that are very pro business that make it easy for you to do business in the state. Oh, the last thing I will say that I didn't mention, foreign taxation. So if you create your business here in Texas, and let's say your business is growing and now you want to expand, you want to do business in Oklahoma, a neighboring state, or Mississippi or Louisiana, right? You will have to go and register with the Secretary of State in those states, and you're going to have to file what they call a foreign entity, because your corporation was actually created in another state, so you're a foreign entity to that state, and you have to pay that fee every year to do business in that state. It's not substantial, but you have to pay it. And then and they base that fee off your revenues from that state. So the first year is little nothing, but then every year you have to file that report that shows how much money you made in that state.
Hmm. That reminds me, if we were to end up establishing our business in Texas, for example, but then we end up moving to, say, Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
are we still capable of keeping our LLCs in the States, or does it have to be something else?
No, you can keep it in the state. You would just need to employ a registered agent at that point that still lives and resides in the state that can act on your behalf of anything you needed in the state. But yeah, it
Nice.
doesn't require you to have to live here. You just have to be doing business here. So wherever you decide to make your home state is just where you set it up. But that means in New Mexico, if you move to New Mexico, you would have to register as a foreign company.
To like Mexico or like Canada?
Yeah, or to Canada. Yeah. And then when you go out of the country, it's different, because now you got to register as not only foreign but also international.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Which that we don't want to get into that today, because that requires a lot more conversation, because now we're in the international laws and tariffs and all those things. So that, in fact, even for that, I would have to bring in a specialty lawyer that deals with that to talk about that. So that when you get to that point, you got enough money you can pay.
Here's hoping, right? Well,
Yeah, when
perfect.
when I get to that point, I'm paying somebody. I'm not, yeah, that's that, because when you get into the multiple countries and import exports and tariffs and that stuff is a whole different language. So,
Yep, might as well bring in the whole crew, lawyers,
yeah,
business, boards.
exactly. It's because everybody has different rules. So, for example, just to keep it simple, guys, I'll give you something real simple that you probably wouldn't think about. Let's just take coffee, for instance. Do you know in different countries, the temperature of coffee is regulated different?
Really?
Yes. Do you know that Starbucks, McDonald's, anybody that sells coffee in the US, that coffee cannot exceed a certain temperature when they sell it? There's a law, and they have to abide by it. You know why? Because
Why?
there was a lawsuit against McDonald's years ago where somebody said that they drank some coffee from McDonald's and it burned their lip, and they sued them and they won. And because of that, this law was created to protect businesses from being in that dilemma by regulating a temperature they cannot exceed. So now their machinery and their equipment is regulated to that temperature so it doesn't exceed it. And that
That's
stuff
right.
gets
I
checked
heard about that.
periodically throughout the year by the regulatory agencies that are come in and check that just to make sure you're in compliance.
I heard about that case. It was a lady who went to get McDonald's coffee actually,
Yep,
and
yep,
she spilled it in her lap, and she had gotten third-degree burns all over her lower half because
yep,
they had brewed it to like 200 and something
yep,
degrees.
yep. And she wasted it in her lap, I think, right? Something like that.
Yep, spilled
Yeah.
it directly into her lap. She had to like have a whole bunch of grafts and stuff. It was really bad too.
Oh, it's bad. It was bad. Oh, she got paid.
Yeah,
but
she did
but there's
a
no
couple
amount of
million.
money that can take those burns away though. So
Mm-mm.
yeah, so those are like so stuff like so it's different in every country. It's just so many weird things. Like even with air inflate, how much you can inflate your tires, that's different in every country. How fast your car can go by regulation is different in every country. I mean, it's just so many things that are different in every country that you gotta really that you gotta have a team of people that specialize in that.
Well, when we're there, we'll be making millions.
No, when you're there, you'll be making hundreds of millions and maybe billions.
Hey.
And I won't be
I
mad at
like
it
that,
because
Professor Peters.
if y'all making that kind of money, Professor is taken care
Yeah.
of. Because y'all need a write y'all need to take care of me just for a write-off.
Hey, on the payroll.
Yeah, but I'm telling you though, the biggest thing, I'm glad, I love the questions, I love the way you're thinking. As we close out for time, I know you got some other things you want to do, and I've gone over, but I think it's important to understand the thought process that goes into creating a business structure. It's not as simple as saying, okay, I started a business. No, think about why you're doing this business type. Is that really the type for you, and how does it benefit you to do it this way versus this way? And if you can't answer that question, then there's probably no reason for you to do it this way. So so I want to make sure people are properly aligned. My thing is I don't want you to do business, I want you to know business. Because if you know business, you'll understand how. If you can know it, it means you can articulate it. If you can articulate it, it means you can execute it. If you can execute it, you're going to be successful.
Oh, I
Whew.
like that. Oh,
Yeah.
put that on the shirt, Professor Peters.
I'm trying to tell you. Like the kids, I'm like that sometimes.
Period.
But but that's it. So that's the nutshell. The last thing I will tell all of you and all of you that go to the watch party tonight, you watch this, and we might get more questions. So we'll definitely come back and answer those at another time. But we're gonna do some great things here with the club. But I'm looking for meeting all the businesses and doing great things that helping you grow. But the one thing I want you to think about over the holidays, over the break that's coming up, I want you to research scaling a business. Look at any videos on YouTube on how do you scale? How do you go from zero to scale? How do you set your business in a way that it can scale? It's a mentality and it's a thought process that most entrepreneurs don't have that they have to learn. It's a different way of thinking because if you scale, then your business you will build a system and a business that truly runs without you physically having to be tied to it. Otherwise, you're going to build a wonderful, wonderful job that controls you because it takes your time. You can't step away from it because if you step away, then it stops. And that's not what you want. That's just you just a glue. You just built you a great job. And that's not the point of building a business. And I
Yo.
know that because I've made that mistake.
Whoops. Well, we're grateful to have your expertise, and we really appreciate it.
No
Thank you very
problem. No
much.
problem. I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely. What are you going to stay for the club business? I'll blow through it real
I'm
quick.
gonna stay and be in the background, but I will be here. Yes.
Okay. Let's switch over to club business. I know I've kept y'all a little bit longer, but I have some great news for everyone. We are official! Yay! I finally got the confirmation from Eastfield that our paperwork has gone through. I was told, however, that there is an issue with our with the bank account that they're going to be resolving in the probably next semester in the beginning, so that's perfectly fine. We also got the club logo poll results by an overwhelming well, this one was the only one that anyone picked, so it's overwhelming. Yay, this is our club logo. The Dallas skyline was proposed by Miss Olivia, and we chose this font over the friend font. This is what it's going to look like on business shirts. We do also have the option for a couple of other things, but I just wanted to show you how it looked on the shirts. We are also cleared for a Christmas movie night. It's been super hard semester, and I know that a lot of us have been working super hard and have a lot of stuff on our plates. So I wanted to do something fun for us. It'll be a family-friendly event, and we will be able to have a concession stand. I want to put hot cocos and snacks on it. I'm kind of hoping that we'll have tamales as well. I'm going to check and see if we need to have any special legal stuff with that, like food licenses or stuff. But I know that other clubs have sold food stuff, so I'm sure it's not going to be a problem. Now for the movie, we have a couple of contenders that have been suggested. First, Elf. Very everyone loves it. Very popular. We've got The Night Before Christmas, personal favorite. I love it a lot. We've got Klaus, which is actually one of my top favorite recent modern movies. Beautiful movie. I love it. And then we've got The Grinch Stole Christmas. I like this version, but if we have other people who prefer a different option, please go ahead and give that a comment. Well, after this meeting, we'll write up the minutes for it, and then I'll post a poll like we did with the logo. Where's it going to be at? We have the option to do it in any of our student life centers. I have gotten the clearance for North Lake, but if we have any other kinds of interest, we can do it at the student life centers, like over at Brookhaven or, well, I'm not sure which location is the most central, but I did check out North Lake, and I was going to go and check out Brookhaven. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I was kind of thinking about doing like bring your own blanket kind of stuff, because I did want like the family stuff, but like that's totally up in the air. Speaking about the new year, about the new year, right? Because we had talked about how the account was going to be in the new year. We're also going to be launching our club tech hub as well. Send me the address, Destiny. Hi, Destiny. Will do. I know that our advisors have been working on a tech hub for our club, and it will have quite a wide variety of things that will be available to us, including member profiles where we'll be able to put our business and experiences, as well as alumni support. So we won't be, yes, it'll be free for us. And then once people graduate, we won't have to kick anyone out. You'll still have all of the resources available to you. So we'll be connected there. It'll give us connectivity to our network of mentors and a lot of the other kinds of stuff that will be, members and stuff. The mentor access will probably be developed a little bit later because they need to start the mentors off with the practicum, and then after the practicum, we'll be requesting those mentors if they'd be willing to be a part of our network as well. So that's super exciting. It's going to be really great and super helpful for us. Now, the gala. Miss Olivia and I went and took a look at the Culinary Center that we have available through the school. Now we will be able to host the gala at this place, and they've got two different venue sections. They've got this little cafe area, and then they've got a much bigger, much more open window space here. We can of course change out the tables and have table covers and decorations. There was even floated the idea of putting making it like a starry night kind of deal. They've got all sorts of stuff. We might have the ability to have some of these culinary students make the food for us for this gala. We're in talks with the Culinary Center about this, but some of their options are super amazing. Look at that. They have if you're interested and you want to check it out, they told us that they have $15 meals every Tuesday, I believe. And it's this quality kind of food. And as for that is all we have for our club meeting so far. Does anyone have any questions or any kind of things that they want to bring up into the meeting right now? Any motions?
Yes, when will the gala take place? And also, when are we going to start the planning and everything for it?
The gala itself, we have two different options. If we are able to get someone to cater our food instead of having the students make it for us, we can do it in the beginning of the spring semester. If we want to coordinate with the Culinary Center apprentice students so that we can have this super fancy food, we might have to do it a little bit later in April timeframe. But then we won't have to get anyone to cater the food for us. We can showcase the student skills to the business people that will be asking to come.
Yeah, may I make a suggestion?
Yes, always.
So I would suggest, because the time you're not factoring in, you want to have adequate time to really promote this and for us to go out and get as many sponsors as you can. And so and why wouldn't you want to showcase the students? Because they're going to give you more in some aspect than even your caterer you would have to pay. So I think you got some benefits there. It's a great showcase. Now, if we're doing just a smaller event for us, and you saying, okay, we're gonna have somebody cater, and we just all pay a ticket price for the cost, that's one thing. But I think for the gala, for the first inaugural one, because you also want to have to be able to line up some entertainment, be able to line up some things, and it takes time. It takes time to plan it well. Because what you don't want to do is is not playing it really well and have some fall through the crack, because we only fall through the crack because we only get one chance to make a first impression.
Right.
And you want to knock it out the park, your first impression, and immediately. One of the pleas as we put together the program is you got to put the program. You want to have a process where they can already commit to next year. They don't have to pay right now, but they can already commit to sponsor an even big event next year and support the up and coming businesses of Dallas College. And I think, that's just my take on it, because the thing that gets me a little bit nervous, if you're trying to do it at the beginning of the spring, you don't have adequate time to promote it. Who's your target audience? Like, we haven't defined it. We don't have a strategy. We don't have a team set to go out and do the different aspects of it. So
It's very true.
it takes time, and I don't want you to rush to get something done, and it's not what I've heard you articulate you want it to be.
Right. Which is why I'm okay with this being done in April, because then we can develop our network. I know for sure that we had just talked about the mentorship people. Once we have the mentorship people in our system, we can broadcast that as well. We are going to be making our own social medias because we definitely need the YouTube channel for ourselves, but it would also be great to have social media for advertisement for the public as well, because ideally I want to be able to develop the public eye to look towards our student and membership businesses, so that we can get our members an audience, So doing it a little bit later, I think, would be a good idea. That way we can.
Too. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I agree too. Just because of what Professor Peters was saying, we can have the culinary students partner with us, and it'll be less money that will probably be coming out of our event planning and different things we could use it for.
Definitely. And with this kind of fancy food, we can charge like $30 a plate. And they told us that it was going to be a 5-course meal if we end up doing this. So not bad for a $30 plate. Other than that, that is about it for us. Did anyone have any more questions? All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone being here. We are also going to have we are going to have the watch party later tonight. I do know that there are going to be a couple people who said that they're going to be there. So thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone who was able to stay, and I will see everyone soon. Have a good day.
Same. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.